Hey there, Tim Derp here. Welcome to the first edition of planes that are not on War Thunder that should be, but with U.S. bombers. Now, one of the aircraft that gets the least amount of love, obviously in War Thunder, are indeed bombers. Way back when the game was in its infancy, bombers were way too overpowered. Nobody could touch them, and bases were way too easy to kill and had way too many points. So basically all you had to do was kill 2 or 3 bases and the game would be over. But a lot has changed, a lot of time has passed, and they nerfed bombers to where it takes a lot more to kill bases and it doesn't take as many tickets. But now, because they keep adding more and more advanced aircraft, mainly jet fighters, bombers have become less and less relevant unless you are in rank 1 or rank 2, and that's just because they have such high altitude that early monoplanes and biplanes just physically cannot get up to their altitude. They'll stall out. So the aircraft that I'm going to be covering are going to be post-World War II bombers. They're not going to be pre-World War II or World War II. They are strictly past World War II, because I think that's where the majority of the bombers that actually exist in basically every country right now in the game, they just don't exist right now in the game. At the end of the video, I'll kind of explain a little bit why I think bombers aren't included, and I might make a separate video strictly just about why bombers aren't prevalent past 7.0 really. So without further ado, let's get on to the 3 aircraft. The first bomber that I will be talking about is probably the most famous bomber out of the 3. It is the gigantic B-36 B variant or D variant Peacemaker. This was the largest mass-produced piston engine aircraft ever. It's technically not the biggest. That would go to the H-4 Hercules or the Spruce Goose, but only one was ever made of that, and it only flew once and not for very long. So this technically is the biggest. It also has the longest wingspan of any combative aircraft. I believe the Boeing 747, I think, has a longer one, or the Antonov, the Antonov 334, I can't remember, the gigantic Ukrainian plane that got destroyed in the Russian-Ukrainian war. But it was a key U.S. strategic bomber during the early Cold War, mainly in the late 40s, early 50s. It was very prevalent, and then it started getting phased out once the B-52 started appearing in more mass-produced numbers towards the late 1950s. Its first flight was in 1946. It was being planned in the early 1940s to go against Nazi Germany at the time. It obviously wasn't needed, but it was still very much in development. Its top speed was 435 miles an hour. This was after it had its 4 jets installed, so that is the top speed currently with that, which means 700 kilometers an hour as well in the metric system. Its armament, it had 2 20mm M24A1 autocannons in the tail turret. This is the age where you no longer have rear gunners, side gunners, a top gunner, a bottom gunner. It's just going to be the tail gunner, and then a little bit later on it got implemented into a fully automatic tail turret. Its power plant, it had 6 Pratt & Whitney R4360-53 Wasp major engines, making 3,800 horsepower. They were, I believe, 24 or 28 cylinders. I will put the correct amount in the video, but they were gigantic piston engines. And then later on, it had 4 GE J47-GE-13 turbojets added that made 2,358 kilograms of force each. Instead of the rate of climb, because that's not really relevant with bombers, I decided to put the max payload of the bombers. So the normal load for the B-36, which I found, was 33,000 kilograms, and on a max load it could have 38,000 kilograms, including 2 gigantic 19,050 kilogram Grand Slam conventional bombs. That would be the biggest bombs implemented into the game if this aircraft was implemented into the game. So because of those gigantic bombs and the fact that it's a little bit faster than World War II bombers, it's certainly faster than the B-17, and I believe it's a tiny bit faster than the B-29, I believe at a bow rating of 8.0 it should work. That is still before most missiles are implemented into the game. I believe the French, the weird French bomber, or bomber fight, whatever it is, does have missiles, and then there's obviously rockets. But I think it might be able to go against those. The only thing is it would have to go. It would have to be at even a higher altitude to make it work. But I think 8.0 would probably be the max it would work. It'd be a little bit higher than the B-29. I believe the same as the T-4. But that's my thoughts on where the B-36 would work. I will say right before I end this section, the reason why I had to slash B and D is because the B variant just had the piston engines, and the D variant had the pistons and the jet engines. So there's a little bit of a caveat. If it's to the B variant, it should be probably 7.7, because it'll be a little bit slower, and the D variant should definitely be 8.0. But that's my thoughts on the B-36 Peacemaker. Next up is the B-45 Tornado. This was the first operational jet bomber in the United States Air Force. It was used as a light/medium bomber in the early Cold War, and especially the Korean War. But it was a straight-winged early jet aircraft, so it wasn't going to have a terribly long shelf life. It lasted, I think, until the mid-1950s and was replaced by the B-47 and the supersonic B-58. Its first flight was in 1947, so 1 year after the B-36. That just shows the rapid involvement of technology and jet engines. Its top speed was 566 miles per hour. That is 911 kilometers an hour. It had an armament of 2 50 cal M3 machine guns and a tail turret. Its power plant was 4 GE J47/GE13 turbojet engines with the same amount of power as the B-36 is the exact same engine. Its bomb load, it could carry a max of 10,000 kilograms of a bomb load, so you could probably load, I would say, trying to think, you could probably do 10 1,000-pound bombs easily. Don't quote me on that, I can't do the exact math in my head, but it should be able to carry more than enough to destroy a base or two. The only problem is obviously once we're getting into the jet age, it really does not have that speed and altitude advantage. But it's definitely faster than the B-36. It's a lot smaller target than the B-56, or 36, sorry. So it would be probably a more comparable to the B-57 Canberra, which is technically a British bomber, but it was licensed to the United States Air Force. That's why it's in the United States Air Force tech tree. But as far as battle rating, I think it should go where the B-57 currently is, which is at 8.3, because it shares a lot of similarities. Now, whether you want to add that into the tech tree or not would really be up to Gaijin themselves. But you could add it as a premium, or you could add it as an event aircraft. It doesn't really matter. But it's kind of a slept-on bomber in a way, because no one really thinks about it. Everyone thinks about the B-52, the B-36, the B-47, the B-58, stuff like that when they think of early jet bombers. So the B-45 kind of just gets swept under the rug. So I think giving it a little bit of love would be very, very nice. But that's my thoughts on the B-45 Tornado. The last aircraft that we would be covering today is the B-47 Stratojet. It is the first swept-wing jet bomber in the United States Air Force. It was also its main nuclear strategic deterrent bomber for the U.S. until the B-52 once again replaced it. It kind of replaced a lot of these aircraft in the early 1960s in that main nuclear strategic role. It was, like I said, the first swept-wing jet bomber. It looked very futuristic for the time. It kind of just basically looks like what a early baby B-52 looks like. It just looks like a miniature version of that. But its first flight was in 1947, so the same time as the B-45 Tornado and right as the B-36 was getting introduced. So having that stand right next to a B-29, for example, which was only just going into production in early to mid 1944 is kind of crazy to think. In 3 years, they go from a B-29 to the B-47. Its top speed was a very, very respectable 607 miles per hour. That is 977 kilometers an hour, almost breaking the 1,000 kilometers an hour as a bomber. Is very impressive, especially at the time. Its armament, it had two 20mm M24A1 autocannons, same as the B-36, in the tail turrets. These were all remote controlled. So I don't think the pilot did it, but the co-pilot would be controlling the tail turret to see in case of any bad guys decided they want to go and chase it. Its power plant, it had an approved GE J47/GE/25 turbojet that made a little bit more at 3,265 kilograms of force. That would explain the little bit higher top speed, and then you add in the swept wings, which helped the miles per hour by increasing it by about 50 miles per hour, or almost 100 kilometers an hour. Its bomb load was also a little bit better than the B-45 at 11,340 kilograms for its max bomb load. So you'd be able to load, it should be more than enough for killing a base or two easily. I don't know if you could kill an airfield with that, but I don't think that's even an option in the game currently when it comes to jet fighters. So for its battle rating, this one could be a little bit controversial because I have it at 8.3 to 8.7. It just depends on what they would actually do with bombers in general, especially when you get into the jet age, because currently they are almost virtually useless. They can barely get to a base even right now before just getting nuked by just early jet fighters that have the advantage, like attack aircraft like the F-84 or the ME-262. And then once you get past 8.3, you're starting to run into missiles And you still have attack aircraft that are even being equipped with missiles as well, so all they have to do is just get a lock onto you and you're dead because you can't outmaneuver a missile. You're gigantic, you're heavy, they're just not going to miss you. And that's before you can even really get to a base most of the time. So that's my thoughts on 3 bombers that I'd love to see. I'm going to probably make another video of another 3 that I'd like to see. We're just probably going to be going time periods for the most part, because I think that would be a fun little thing to do. But thank you everyone for watching. If you like what you see and you haven't already, like the video and subscribe to my channel to see more content like this. I have to thank everyone for giving me a ton of support the past month with these videos. You guys are what keep me going to making content like this. If you want to see an aircraft I haven't mentioned, leave a comment down below on what you would like to see me cover, and I might very well do. I will eventually get to more countries. It's just the US is by far the easiest for me to do. But until next time, have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Peace out.